Good evening, everyone. We're so happy to have you joining us today. Welcome to Book Passage. My name is Cheryl Bronstein, and I am one of the event coordinators here. I am thrilled to welcome you to our amazing program tonight, our conversations with authors. And thank you so much to all of our loyal supporters out there who have been helping to keep our doors open and the business flowing during these past 18 months. It has not been easy, but we are very grateful for all your business and support. Book Passage is proud to say we have two convenient locations serving the Bay Area. We have our beautiful location in Corte Madera, and we have our store in the Ferry Building in San Francisco. And both locations are open. They're open for coming in and in-person shopping. We are open 7 days a week. So please come in, buy your books from the event tonight. And for all other titles, please come and shop with us. I want to mention that the supply chain issues are real and it's going to impact books as well. So as I know, holidays are a ways away, but please shop early this year. We will run out of wonderful titles, especially this title today. It's a beautiful book. It makes a wonderful gift. If you see it, please buy it. For all of our business owners out there, Book Passage has a very thriving business-to-business operation, and we will be happy to help you with your bulk orders. We can offer very attractive discounts. We ship all over the world. So please remember, books make the best gifts. And if you're interested in that, please call Book Passage, say I'm interested in corporate orders, and we will be happy to help you. This book particularly makes a wonderful gift for all your clients and your employees. And I understand that Dylan and Cecily will be willing to sign book plates so you could order signed books for your staff or your clients, and they will be thrilled to get this wonderful gift. Book Passage is proud to bring you all this excellent programming, so please take a look at our website. In addition to the online events, we also have in-person events. Yes, you heard that correctly, in-person events. So look at our website. We have them in the store. We have them in other venues. It's kind of reminiscent of the old days in 2019. So please, please don't miss anything. Stay up to date on our website and come and attend our wonderful author events. Here at Book Passage, our mission is to enrich, engage, and inspire. And Book Passage has been a Bay Area institution for over 40 years. Again, a big thank you to our loyal supporters out there. We hope to continue to serve you for another 40 years. Well, tonight, let's taste the world. From the creators of the best-selling Atlas Obscura comes this new breathtaking guide, Gastro Obscura, that transforms our sense of what people around the world eat and drink. Now, I am a huge fan of this series. Atlas Obscura is an incredible book. We sold thousands of them when they first came out. Again, another great holiday seller. This next edition, Gastro Obscura, is just as spectacular. This captivating book celebrates the incredible global diversity of food, ingredients, and cooking practices. What could be more important in this moment in time than to be so delightfully engaged in the many ways that food cultivates a profound sense of togetherness? Food adventures behold, beer made from fog and chili, Egypt's 2,000-year-old egg ovens, specialized utensils from the Victorian era like ice cream forks and mustache cups. It's all here and more. Now, this book makes an amazing gift for any food or travel lover in your life, but you better make sure you get a copy for yourself because every page holds beautifully written delights. Cecily Wong is a writer at Atlas Obscura and the author of the novel Diamond Head, which won Elle's Reader Prize and voted a best debut novel by the Brooklyn Book Festival. She lives in Oregon. Dylan Thuras is the co-founder and creative director of Atlas Obscura and the host of the AO YouTube series 100 Wonders. I hope many of you saw him as he made the morning talk show rounds this week, presenting incredible bizarre foods that he got to eat with celebrities. He is also the father of 2 adorable children and he lives in New York. Barry Enderwick, he loves sandwiches and created the Sandwich of History social media channel on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. On these platforms, he recreates and tastes sandwiches from multiple cookbooks that span from 1895, yeah, that's a while ago, to 1968. In addition to sandwiches, he also reviews chips from around the world on his show, The Chips with Barry. He is currently the leading marketing at the email and meeting scheduling app Boomerang. So let's enjoy this hour of food, fun, and exploration with Cecily Wong, Dylan Thuras, and Barry Enderwick. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. That's so nice. What an intro.
Hello. Hi, hang on. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Let me do that. Hang on. Pew, pew, pew. And all right. Can people see that? Cecily, can you see that?
I sure can.
Great. I'll assume that everyone else can see it then. Hi, everybody. We're going to start by taking you all on a very quick world tour, both through the foods that Cecily and I grew up eating and how they kind of fit into this whole picture, and through some of the things that we include in the book. We're going to go fast because we want to make sure that we have time to talk to Barry about sandwiches. I'm very excited about this. So to start, I grew up eating this. It is a jar filled with vinegar, sugar, onion, peppercorns, dill, and a bunch of cut up fish. And it is extremely delicious. I love it to this day. I also grew up in a place where every summer my family would pack up the car and we would all go and watch people's faces get carved in 90-pound blocks of butter. Because this is, these are normal things that normal people do. And do you have any guesses as to where I grew up? Let me see if I can see the chat while it's happening. If anyone has guesses, they can put them in the chat. Don't, I'm going to just tell you.
Is it Minnesota?
It is, Cecily. How did you know?
Just a guess.
Good guess. It is Minnesota. So my family was primarily Scandinavian. They emigrated to the Midwest, and they brought foods with them like pickled herring, lefse, the often maligned lutefisk. This is what I grew up eating. The region's also a big dairy producer, so places like the Minnesota State Fair would show off all of their abundant dairy. Now, Cecily, you go.
This is my childhood on a plate. It's essentially a Spam sushi. It's called Spam musubi. It's a piece of Spam with rice. It's wrapped in seaweed. Where I'm from, you can pretty much buy these anywhere. You can get them at gas stations and convenience stores. And I also grew up eating a lot of this, which is macaroni salad. This was pretty much the only salad that I was served in my youth. It is macaroni in a very heavy mayonnaise dressing. It's thick, it's cold, and it is a staple of my family's cuisine. So any guesses? Thank you, Barry. Yes, yeah, my family is from Hawaii. My whole family's from there. Hawaii. My grandparents came over in the early 1900s from China. All four of them still live on Oahu. My parents grew up there, and I was born there, but I did not grow up in Hawaii because I grew up here in Oregon, where we can pickle anything. And so I grew up in Oregon, and because I grew up in Oregon, I also had the opportunity, like Dylan, to take some very dairy heavy vacations. We used to go to the Tillamook Cheese Factory. Here it is. It's on the Oregon coast. You tour this factory, you stand in these huge glass windows, and you just watch people just move around these huge blocks of cheese. And then you eat ice cream at the end. It was great.
So we bonded over our extremely dairy-oriented childhoods. The other thing that connects our childhoods is also a questionable idea of what food or what salads are. So Cecily's got the macaroni salad. I grew up with the Midwestern dessert salad. So we had the cookie salad, which includes crushed Keebler cookies in buttermilk with pudding, whipped cream, and sometimes there's like some light fruit sprinkled among that. And so this is what I grew up. We both grew up with very questionable ideas of salads. But basically, hello, this is us. I'm Dylan Thuras.
I am Cecily Wong. That is us.
We look like authors.
Totally do.
And the reason we wanted to start with our own food background is because of the ways in which food ties us to place, to heritage, to history, even when we don't realize it's happening. In basically two examples, food can tell you where Cecily and I are both from, and it can also bring you to another world without ever leaving your kitchen. And that's exactly what we wanted to do with Gastro Obscura.
Exactly. Gastro Obscura, it's a collection of not just foods. We cover forgotten history and endangered traditions and incredible experiences, culinary wonder of pretty much every variety. And I think the coolest thing is that we try and tell you exactly how and where you can try all these things for yourself.
To go back in time a little bit, this all started in a way much before this. 10 years ago, my co-founder Josh and I started a website called Atlas Obscura. It basically was started as an art project to create this map of the world's hidden wonders, to tell people who wanted to travel in interesting and unusual ways where they could find interesting places, and to create a community of people who wanted to share the hidden wonders of the world. And we published a book, as was mentioned before, and we shared places like this. This is the Gates of Hell in Turkmenistan. It's a giant, about 300-foot wide burning hole in the desert there. It looks like a natural phenomenon, but it's not. It was an industrial accident when a drilling rig collapsed in, releasing natural gas. They set the gas on fire in 1971, and it's still on fire today. It's on fire right now as I speak to you. So we shared places like this. We shared other things like this. This is the Quechua Chaca, or the last Incan bridge. This is from back a while ago. This is a video from maybe 2010 or 2011 that we took when we visited. And basically this bridge is amazing for a bunch of reasons. It's woven entirely out of grass. Every year, the 4 villages around here come together, cut down the bridge, just starting to rot and fall apart, and reweave it. It's also a living piece of the Incan Empire. It's created exactly the same way today as it was then. But one of the fundamental ideas of Atlas Obscura, and it's absolutely true in Gastro Obscura, was that we were there to celebrate not just things in Peru and Turkmenistan, but local wonders, things that you could find in your own backyard. This is a place in my own backyard. This is in New York City, in Queens. This is the Ganesh Temple. And it's a beautiful Hindu temple in Flushing. It's worth going just to take a look at the architecture. But we realized that that sense of wonder and surprise that we sought out in Atlas Obscura could be found really wherever you were willing to look for it, including sitting right in front of you. Here.
Or below you, because right below this Ganesh temple is this really lovely canteen that serves almost exclusively South Indian dosas. And they're extremely good, but more than that, they just help to tell the story of the place where you're eating. They help to fill in information about the temple above you, to tell the story of the neighborhood, the people who you're eating with, about immigration and preservation and cultural adaptation. And I think that's kind of the beauty of food, is that by just paying attention to what you're eating, it can tell you a story of exactly where you are.
So we began Gastro Obscura back in 2017, and like with Atlas, users could submit dishes, ingredients all over the world. And as we went through all of this material and started to refine it and went searching for new material, Cecily and I did an enormous amount of work to kind of figure out how to map everything to the world and fill in spots that were needed stuff. One of the things that became clear is just how much food connects us through sort of parallel food traditions, and sometimes through a single ingredient running across the world in interesting ways. So if you take my beloved pickled herring, there's a version of this everywhere. In Japan, this is shimesabe.
Yes, this is a piece of mackerel. It's cured in rice wine vinegar, and it's eaten as sushi.
This is found in South and Central America. It's a variation on pescado en escabeche, which is a cousin of ceviche. And it's a pickled fish dish that you can find through Latin America, through the Philippines, through Jamaica, where it's made with Scotch bonnet peppers. This is truly kind of a world dish and a pickled fish dish of great delight. And then if you go to South Africa, you can find the Cape Malay pickled fish, which said to have originated with Malaysian fishermen who obviously wanted to preserve the fish as long as possible, but it's since become a popular Easter dish there. And as we looked at stuff like this and just across kind of the world of food, what we found was that, you know, things like this, pickling, but also fermenting, brewing, smoking, drying. In the case of lutefisk, dousing it in lye until it's poisonous, and then, well, first you dry it, then lye, then you rinse it out. It's all this kind of form of magical transformation, transmutation. And for so much of history, food was just about finding ingenious ways to preserve whatever calories you could find, you know, whether that's worms, insects, any kind of eggs, fat, blood, and then coming up with ways to preserve those calories for as long as possible. And every single new dish, every new method of preservation was this kind of piece of brilliance. It was sometimes devised simply just to stay alive, but often it made something really delicious in that process.
Exactly. So if we go back to my beloved Spam, you realize that Spam at its heart is just it's a preservation technique, canned meat. And so it makes sense that Spam arrived in Hawaii in World War II to feed the soldiers on an island that had very limited resources. But since then, Hawaii has fully adopted Spam. Spam has become Hawaiian culture. Hawaiians eat more Spam than any other place in the world. They eat 7 million cans of Spam, which is almost 7 cans of Spam per person, which is just a ton. And they use it at everything. And that is no more apparent than at this very festival, which is called the Spam Jam. It happens every year on Oahu. 35,000 people come to just celebrate Spam, eat it in its glorious multitudes, Spam fries, Spam pastries, macadamia nuts and powdered Spam.
So many Spam
anything you can think
of. It's truly every Spam thought you've had is probably had. Anyway, Spam also finds itself as another kind of similar story. It was brought by GIs to Hawaii. This is a similar story in South Korea with budae-jjigae, which is during the Korean War. American soldiers were there with plenty to eat in terms of their rations. Well, Korean stores were running low. People were looking for whatever they could find. So it began this kind of black market trade in everything from canned beans to American cheese to Spam. And then this quickly found its way combined with traditional Korean ingredients like kimchi, vegetables, chili paste. And you end up with this amazing dish, budae-jjigae, or army-based stew, which comes out of the kind of collision of these two food cultures. And it's delicious. Spam connects back to my own food history because it's originally from Minnesota. There's a Spam museum you can visit up in Austin, Minnesota. And so all of these things kind of pull us all together. I think even stuff that I thought of as quintessentially Midwestern, like, okay, yeah, you can find these in Minnesota and Iowa, a few other state fairs, you'll find butter sculptures, but it turns out there's others. This is Tibetan butter sculptures. They're made of yak butter, but they go way back and they're part of this big yak butter festival that happens. And they use mineral pigments to create these incredibly beautiful sculptures, which are then eventually fed back to the livestock. Ironically, the ones in Minnesota are kind of also fed, like the people who get their heads carved get their butter head back, and they usually have a big pancake breakfast and they cut off their own head and serve it, which is like a dream of mine. Anyway, so all of this is kind of this incredible parallels. And the other thing that we found, a good example here of these Tibetan butter sculptures, is the ways in which specific kind of food cultures can carry things for hundreds or thousands of years, especially monastic food. So all over the world, monks, nuns in monasteries and temples have these incredible food cultures. They do a lot of different things, but one thing they do really well is get you really, really drunk. They're great at it.
Really drunk, yes. For example, Lindisfarne Island, this is also called Holy Island because it was once home to an order of medieval monks who made really excellent mead. They're still making mead on this island today in this ancient tradition, and it's supposed to be very sweet and super delicious. Mead itself has this kind of holy history. It was called the nectar of the gods by the ancient Greeks, and it's just this really incredible island that's a tidal island, so you can only cross during low tide twice a day, which is quite magical.
And if you get stuck there, you're just gonna have 12 hours to drink more mead.
12 hours of mead is pretty dangerous. I'm not sure anyone's survived that many hours of mead.
Yeah, this is another good example. So this is in the French Alps. These are the Carthusian monks, who you might recognize for their delicious drink chartreuse. So they became an order way back in 1000 CE. And then in the 1600s, they were basically given a gift of an ancient alchemical manuscript for an elixir that would prolong life. But they looked at it and they were basically like, we're not making this, because it had 130 ingredients in it. It required distillation, infusion, maceration. And it wasn't until about 1737 that anyone even tried to make it, but they did make it. And that year, a lone monk delivered the very first bottles of this herbal tonic, which at the time was 69% alcohol. So when I say they will get you, get you, they will get you. Eventually they realized that people might want a milder liquor, so they invented something called green chartreuse. That's mostly what we drink now. You can actually still get the high grade stuff in a teeny tiny bottle. You get in these little, they seem like medicine bottles. But basically they make it the same way they did then. Green chartreuse is still 55% alcohol, and two monks still handle the entire process. They are the only two monks who know everything that goes into it. And they put it in these huge casks inside this, which is the world's longest liquor cellar. So this is like one of these incredible monastic traditions.
Amazing. Oh, so for something more calming, you might head to China's holy Mount Hua. It begins not so calm. It begins with a hike where you have to do this. It's called this is called the plank walk. You essentially shimmy along these planks that are just mounted into the mountain's face. This has been called the most dangerous hike in the world by many people. So it's actually harrowing at first, but once you get to the very top, which is 7,000 feet in the air, there's a Taoist temple, and in that Taoist temple is a tea house where you can have an incredibly hard-earned glass of tea and have an incredible view, just probably the best view you've ever seen with a cup of tea.
Or you could go to India and visit the Golden Temple, where they practice this Sikh tradition of feeding everyone regardless of class, race, any background. You can come there and get a free meal. And it means that this place feeds between 50,000 and 100,000 people a day. Excuse me. Which means they have whole rooms dedicated to this. So one room is just dedicated to vegetable chopping. Another room is just dedicated to giant pots where they're stirred with like literal oars. And another room is dedicated to making lentil curry, which requires its own building, a hose, and 28,000 pounds of lentils every single day.
So great. This is a church in Ethiopia. When it was first built in the 5th century, a swarm of bees came in and took up residence. And this same colony of bees has been tended to by a continuous succession of priests. It is one of the 3 holy honey churches in Ethiopia that surround the town of Lalibela. And Lalibela, the name, it's named after King Lalibela, and his name means the bees recognize his sovereignty. And so it makes sense that this honey is considered holy, and it's dispensed by the clergy. It's used to treat all kinds of ailments, skin conditions as serious as leprosy, psychological conditions. Pretty amazing.
It's also not even the only holy honey out there. There's a lot of different kind of holy honeys and things that cross the line between the religious and the delicious, obviously. This is an example in Turkey, near the Black Sea, where these huge fields of rhododendrons grow up the hills. And there are hundreds of types of rhododendrons, but a few contain something called a granotoxin. And it's a type of neurotoxin, and it makes this particular type of honey, known as Delhi Ball or mad honey, psychedelic. And locals have been cultivating it for thousands of years. And in smaller doses, it's used like the honey in Ethiopia, for hypertension, diabetes, gastric pain. But more than a tablespoon can start poisoning. It can start hallucinations, numbness, nausea. And we know this in part because there's this incredible story from 67 BC when the Roman Emperor Pompey sent a huge army of Roman soldiers into this area of Turkey to defeat a guy named King Mithridates, who refused to submit to the Roman Empire. And this was like their third time trying to get him to submit. And the Romans marching in, they found something interesting scattered along the roadside. They found these chunks of honeycomb. And they're Roman soldiers, they're starving, they've been marching, unable to resist. They eat it. Shortly thereafter, they fall into hallucinations, they start falling unconscious, and Mithridates' soldiers sweeps in and wipes them out. It's one of the great sacks in Roman history, and it's all due to mad honey. It's also not the only substance, innocuous seeming substance, which can cause you to have a really exciting night. This is Salima porgy. It's a lovely little fish about this big. Mostly you just get it fried. It's eaten across the Mediterranean, French Riviera, Tunisia. Once in a while, I can't give you exact numbers. Maybe it's 1 in 10,000, maybe it's 1 in 100,000. But once in a while, something goes a little sideways. In Arabic, this fish has a different name that means the fish that makes dreams. And basically, they're not sure the exact mechanism, but the fish go around, they eat some kind of algae, and certain of them become like a big fried piece of LSD. So if you eat a fish that has become psychoactive in this way, you have heavy duty hallucinations. There's an amazing study from 2006 that shows the case of 2 men basically who just wanted to have dinner, and then one spent the rest of the night saying that he could hear all these birds screaming at him, and the other one wasn't able to drive because he could see giant spiders near his car. Anyway, fun fish. The Romans also used this to get high, no surprise. And it's still used ceremoniously today in Polynesia.
If you don't want to try fried LSD fish, you should try miracle berries. I know. I'm not saying I am, but these are miracle berries. This is a slightly less insane way to trip. These are berries from West Africa, and they kind of look like cranberries. They kind of taste like bland cranberries. But the magic behind miracle berries is that if you eat the flesh and you let the liquid coat your mouth, and then you eat something that should taste sour, it all of a sudden tastes sweet. All sour things suddenly taste sweet. So you eat a lemon, it tastes like lemonade. You eat goat cheese, it tastes like cheesecake. All sorts of things. And that's thanks to very special miraculous protein called miraculin.
They're super fun. Me and my 6-year-old ate some of these, and then we ate like lemons and limes and sour cream, and like it's a great thing to do with a kid. Actually, it's delightful. Whether it's dissolving the barrier between eating and tripping, or spam transforming cuisines from Hawaii to South Korea, or the parallels between Midwestern butter sculptures and Tibetan butter sculptures, food we found across the book, it's got this incredible ability to kind of make connections and recombine into new forms. When I was growing up, I really only knew who one chef was. It was this guy, a guy named Wolfgang Puck. And he had this big, exciting thing he was doing called fusion cuisine. And he touted it as this sort of revolutionary idea of combining Asian and European ingredients and techniques. And whatever, it's fine. You can make tacos and beep and bop and make them one thing, and sometimes it's delicious. But the thing that I think we discovered is that fusion is not a cuisine. It is essentially the fundamental nature of all food. So, take this.
Yes, this is a cake that began its life as a German spit cake. And so it was a hot rotating spit. You would kind of brush batter onto it to create these layers. The Dutch took this recipe, they took it to Indonesia. And then in Indonesia, the locals added spices. They changed the way they made the layers. They made them in a pan and broiled them so they could make these really intricate designs. And you get this cake, a cake that needs a German recipe and Dutch butter and spices from Indonesia. And it kind of belongs to all the cultures in its own right.
Or this, which is created, it's a Korean dish in a way, but it's Koreans that had moved into Russia, and then in the 1930s were pushed even farther into Uzbekistan by Stalin, who basically said, I don't trust you, and did this kind of forced diaspora. And they were forced to adopt to these local ingredients. And out of that, morkocha emerged, which is this sort of carrot-based quick kimchi that now is beloved across Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Russia. It's actually sort of just made its way back to Korea in an interesting way. But if you go to like Brighton Beach in New York, you'll find this all over the place.
This is Brazilian sushi. Brazil is home to 1.5 million people of Japanese descent, which is the largest population outside of Japan. And so they have this very vibrant sushi culture. This is a Brazilian hand roll. It is enormous. And it's also commonly filled with fruits like mangoes and kiwis.
These are so big. It's hard to understand how big these are. They're like, yeah. This is Okinawan taco rice. It's similar in a lot of ways to what we were talking about with Spam. GIs showed up. They wanted actually their own fusion food, was sort of Tex-Mex. They wanted a very specific type of American taco. And what they got was this taco rice. So this, if you go to a Taco Bell in Okinawa, you get this on the menu.
This is the pasta dish from Eritrea. This is spaghetti al sugo e berbere, which is essentially local cuisine mixed with Italian occupation. You have the spaghetti and tomato sauce, but then it's laced with the local spice mixture, the chili pepper, the fenugreek, the nigella seed, and then you eat it with injera, which is this local spongy flatbread.
Or a dish that we definitely, well, I'm sure most of us have eaten, which is chicken tikka masala, which is basically exists because drunk British people really love gravy. There was a huge diaspora out of India and Pakistan to Britain, and these restaurants were opened, and they would stay open late, specifically kind of capture the British pub market as everyone was leaving drunk. And people, 1960s, they started showing up and saying, oh, I like this chicken tikka, but it was the dry rub style. And they said, I just wish it had a gravy. I grew up eating things covered in gravy. And so some brilliant chef decided, okay, and the first version of this is kind of lost to time, but there's a strong theory that it was basically just a Campbell's tomato soup can combined with chicken tikka. And you end up with chicken tikka masala, which is now a beloved dish and one of Britain's national dishes.
Even the quintessentially Japanese ramen takes noodles that originally came from China. So yeah, food it's borrowing, it's combining, it's transforming. And as we did this research, we found that these culinary collisions, they are often the result of actually terrible circumstances, war, invasions, forced diaspora. But what we also found is that food has this really amazing way of belonging to whoever makes it their own. And so these dishes, they come to exist on their own terms.
I sort of came to the conclusion that I think fusion is the wrong metaphor, that it's the wrong word, because it suggests the combining of two things into one. And this is like a nerdy zag here, but like I think fission is a much better metaphor, because in fusion, you push two things and you make one thing. In fission, two things come violently crashing into each other and multiple new things are created. And I think that's what you end up with more than you started with in a way. And that's what I think what happens in the world of food. But I want to say tonight, we are not here just to talk about food. We're here to talk about a very specific variety of food, one that I'm very excited to talk about. So whether we're talking about the rojiamo, which is one of China's most popular street foods, but also probably the world's oldest sandwich. This was being served 2,000 years before the Earl of Sandwich ever existed, and maybe even earlier. This is an incredible example of one of the world's many delightful sandwiches.
Or the francesinha, which is the sauciest sandwich in Porto. I am dying to eat this thing.
Oh
it
God,
is filled with meat, ham, steak, sausage, covered in cheese, covered in beer and tomato sauce. And then there's an egg, and then often there's fries around it.
Yes. Yes. Cecily and I, it's funny, we worked on this entire book about food. There's so many amazing, and we both basically just left being like, yeah, we both just really want to eat this. We're both excited to go to Porto and get like a really good, authentic version of this. Anyway, or we could be talking about this. This is the fool's gold sandwich. Elvis Presley once, well, I shouldn't be the person telling you this story. I'm going to step here and show you, I'm going to bring on our guest, but in digital form first, here to tell you a little bit about the Fool's Gold sandwich.
Okay, well, Fool's Gold, well, apparently it was something that Elvis really loved. He had it once and he decided one time to go back and get it again. So he took his private jet, his entire crew to Denver, sat on the plane in the hangar at the airport, ordered 20 of these bad boys, had them brought to the plane, and flew home. You know, the Fool's Gold sandwich, we take a loaf of French bread, we take out bread from the interior of both halves, and then one half we fill it with peanut butter. Now, the original recipe said to use a jar of peanut butter. I don't know what size jar they had. I don't know what size loaf they had, but and the other half, blueberry jam. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, this sounds pretty tasty. That Elvis guy might be onto something. And then we fill it up with this is where the Elvis comes in. Then we in the slices. Okay, let's give this Fool's Gold sandwich a go.
So I am thrilled to be joined here tonight by Barry Enderwick, who is the man behind Sandwiches of History on TikTok. And this is a very specific thing. I don't know if anyone in this is watching this is on TikTok, but sometimes you're scrolling through TikTok and you see something so good and kind of perfectly simple, and you're just like, why didn't I think to do this? This is such an amazing idea. Well, Barry did that thing. Thank you for joining us, Barry. We're really excited to talk to you.
Thanks. Very excited to be here, actually. Big fan of Gastro Obscura and Atlas Obscura, of course, for years now. So very excited to be here.
Here, I'm going to stop sharing. So hello. We're excited to talk to you. So you do a really delightful thing, which is you decided, and I would like to hear the origin story of how you decided, but one day you decided that you were going to seek out sandwich recipes from old cookbooks and make them and eat them on TikTok. When was your kind of like aha moment?
Well, so a friend of mine gave me the up-to-date sandwich book of 1909 in PDF form, and said, this is pretty funny. This would be pretty interesting to make some of these. I thought, yeah, it'd be good. So I did it. I did it on Instagram, and it didn't really have a lot of traction. So I just sort of let the account like sit for 6 months. And then TikTok came along. And what I had done on Instagram is I posted pictures of the sandwiches and then making of videos and stories. Well, stories have the same format as TikTok, so I'm like, I'll just throw some of the stories from Instagram on there, not even editing them. It still has the tags and overlays and stuff from Instagram, and people just responded to it. So I started recording new ones, and it's really taken off, and it's gone from one cookbook in 1909. I now have one from 1895, 1901, 1912, 1941, and 1968.
What is a sandwich from 1895?
So that's the presidential cookbook, and it's mostly just cuisine from the White House, but it does have a very small section on sandwiches, and it's basically grind ham to a paste, add mustard, put it between bread. It's surprising how many sandwiches call for you to grind meat into a paste back in the early 1900s and late 1800s.
At least there's mustard.
Yeah, well, sometimes. And the other thing is that I get asked a lot because almost every sandwich from, I don't know, before like 1912 and before calls for the bread to be buttered. And everyone's like, what was their obsession with butter? And I think it's pretty much that it's a moisture barrier, really. It keeps the bread from soggy out.
That is clever.
Yeah.
That is clever.
Yeah. So nowadays we use mayonnaise. So.
Someone just suggested to me, kind of blew my mind, the idea of putting the cheese on a cheeseburger on the bottom of the hamburger to keep the juices in the burger. And I was like, that is a mind-blowing idea. That is an amazing.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Anyway. Also, or you could just butter your hamburger, which would also be great. Which would also be delicious.
Double cheese,
Yeah.
one on top, one underneath.
Yes, exactly. Someone asked a question, and actually I think this applies to all of us. How do we conduct our research? So I'll talk about the gastro side and book, and Cecily jump in. So it works in a lot of the same ways that Atlas did. So it started with, kind of an online presence, a website, and we have a big community of people who we always kind of reach out to and say, tell us about interesting stuff near you. In this case, we said, tell us about interesting, dishes you grew up with, ingredients, restaurants. And so we had a lot of material to work with there. And then Cecily and I kind of mapped it to the world and figured out, okay, there's like a whole, these are areas where we don't have anything. This is something where we want to like go further on. And then so 50% of the book probably came from suggestions, and then 50% came from stuff that we found or wanted to know more about. And then we spent, the book's been about 4 years in the making. So we basically spent that time researching, sometimes tasting. Obviously, I think people sometimes want to believe that we traveled to every country and every continent. Cecily did go on an amazing trip to Georgia, the country, not the state, although you could get amazing stuff in the state too. So there's a little travel, but mostly it was sort of like research, normal journalism, and then like tasting what we could, either at restaurants in the New York area, which is like a great place to go and try things, and an enormous amount of cuisine exists there to reference, and or like ordering stuff off the internet. But that's sort of how I put the book. Barry, it sounds like you are slowly building a library of antique sandwich cookbooks, or maybe just cookbooks more generally. What is the what are you looking for in an old cookbook?
I'm looking for sandwiches. So I know it's shocking, but that's the primary thing. But one of the most interesting things, it's not really research, but one of the things that I do is I do these videos every once in a while where I do a sandwich from your history, where someone invariably, every single post, people comment, my grandpa used to eat Limburger cheese with red onions and peanut butter. Or they've got these amazing combinations that I've never had before. And so I'll do one of their sandwiches and I'll tag them and give them a shout out. And it's been pretty eye-opening because I try things that I've never had before. And on the face of it, I probably would have been like, I don't know, but like peanut butter and mayonnaise, for example. That's something I would not have thought to put together. I tried it and it was actually okay. It was pretty good. It wasn't something that I'm going nuts for, but the same with Limburger cheese. Like I grew up with Limburger cheese was the thing in the comics that always had the stink lines coming off of it. Like, and everyone, it was always made fun of. It was pungent, and it got more pungent as time went on, but it tasted pretty good. So
I'm a huge fan of liverwurst sandwiches, by the way. Like I love a like liverwurst and mustard and onion sandwich. I think that's delicious. But it's funny you should mention the peanut butter and mayo sandwich. Interestingly, so I knew I was gonna talk to Barry, and I knew this is a sandwich of great debate and great strong feelings. And I've never actually tried it. So just before I got on the call, I made myself I had one like end loaf of bread, a piece of bread left. So I made myself. What was that?
Got to use the heels. Good for you.
Yeah, 100%. And so I made myself a little peanut butter and mayo sandwich. So I wanted to do this in real time and actually see what, and you've had it. So you have, all right.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's not bad.
Right.
It's not bad. It wants for something, like it wants for some like a textural addition of some kind, because it's sort of mush and mush. But the flavor of the two things together is just fine.
Yeah, I did one just the other day that was an over easy egg with peanut butter that someone had submitted. And it was good. It was interesting. Then I added sriracha, and I wish I had cilantro because it was just great with that. So yeah, a lot of these sandwiches are just like not quite there.
I saw with the Fool's Gold, I saw you added a little like curry pepper or hot pepper or cayenne pepper or something.
Yeah, there's a chili powder, and that actually was transformational for that sandwich. That made it excellent, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny. It's not like something I would be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat this again. This is definitely something I would eat at like 2 a.m. after making various mistakes. So I can definitely see myself getting home, looking in the fridge and being like, yeah, I could make another one of those. Like that's a thing I could make. Anyway, that's all right.
What's the ratio of the peanut butter to the mayo?
Oh, that's
half and half? That's a personal preference?
It's personal preference, yeah. I like mayonnaise, so I did close to half and half.
That's about where I am. I'd say it's pretty close. Maybe a little more peanut butter, 60-40. Yeah.
Bold.
I like mayo too. I know it's like a lot of people are probably horrified, but
I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Well,
I think I just got scarred from all those salads of my youth.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're sick of answering this question, Barry, but do you have a a greatest of all time sandwich, like anything that's like?
I don't, and it's because for me again, food is what I want when I want food. Depends on mood, time of year, that sort of thing. So sometimes I just want a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup. Sometimes I want peanut butter pickle sandwich. Sometimes I want roast beef, blue cheese, horseradish, arugula. Like it just depends on my mood.
Yeah.
So I haven't. There's very few sandwiches. There's only one sandwich, at least from the series, that I ate that I would never touch again. That was the raw oyster sandwich. It's called the oyster sandwich, and I love raw oysters. I love them, but this called for you to chop them up, mix them with olive oil, and what's this here sauce, Worcestershire sauce, and then put it between two slices of buttered bread. And it was just like, no.
Olive oil is not what raw oysters need.
No, right? Oh, and then the other thing that was the other one that was very odd was the dairy sandwich, which was a slice of Swiss cheese, butter, and another slice of Swiss cheese. No bread.
Yeah.
I thought you'd appreciate that.
This is the Midwest in the house. We're like, let's just get right to the basics here. This is cheese as bread, only dairy inside. I'm all for that.
As a Midwesterner, you must have had the cannibal sandwich.
You know what? I've never had a cannibal sandwich. I'm well aware of it, and it's very controversial because people are like really freaked out by it. It's a raw hamburger. It's like a raw steak sandwich, and people, you can get it if you get it from a good place. They can actually do it in a style like steak tartare. Like, I mean, it's like people are cool with it when you have to pay $45 for it, but when you get it from the deli and it costs $7, they freak out. But yeah, really popular Wisconsin dish, the cannibal sandwich, like famous. But I have yet to have one actually.
It's actually in both the cookbook from 1901 and 1909, and it's called the cannibal sandwich, and it's good. I liked it.
But why the cannibal sandwich? Does that assume that we're all cows?
I know, right? I think it's just because you're eating raw meat. It's weird.
I also don't know how it got that name. Yeah.
Barry, is there an extremely elaborate sandwich from history that you've made?
Oh my goodness. The 500 Tasty Sandwiches from 1941 has, like, I'm going to do a hot sardine sandwich probably tomorrow. And I have to make a cheese sauce, and I have to toast bread, and I have to warm the sardines. There's one from 1901 that has probably 12 ingredients that I need to get, including savory and tarragon, which I'm actually really looking forward to trying that one. The hot sardine, not as much. Not that I don't like sardines, but it calls for American cheese. And American cheese after 1916 is the stuff we know now. Pre-1916, it was basically cheddar.
I like that American cheese is your cutoff. We're both like talking about how we kind of enjoy the mayonnaise and peanut butter sandwich. You're like, no, American cheese is where this is no good.
American cheese is great in a mac and cheese when it's part of a cheese blend, because that's what gives it really a great creamy texture.
Yeah.
But if it's the only cheese in the sandwich,
yeah.
Nothing like.
One of my favorite sections of the book is on the various presidential cheeses. There were multiple big attempts to do like cheese giveaways, including Jackson left the White House in such disrepair after his giant cheese party that there's this letter from, I'm forgetting because I don't have it in front of me. I think it's Martin Van Buren, who's like, the curtains are befouled with cheese. Like, it's just like the White House was literally just sullied top to bottom by this cheese party that Jackson threw on his way out. It's like, what a delight. I love that. I really enjoyed learning and working on that part of the book.
That was decadent.
Yeah. I like definitely wouldn't let Andrew Jackson throw any kind of party at my house. That guy.
No,
anyway, well, thank you for joining with us. If anyone has any burning questions, I can actually see the live YouTube chat. So if anyone has anything they want to get in there before we sign off for the night, put it in now. Otherwise, great speaking with you. Thanks for showing up tonight. Hello, Australia. Poppy, cool that you're watching from Australia. That's awesome.
Vegemite's good, but it has to be.
Yeah,
very
I agree.
thinly applied, but it's quite good.
I'm also pro Vegemite.
Yeah. It's just salty.
Yeah. Just don't put too much on.
Yeah, I think that's probably where people go wrong.
Yeah.
Poppy was saying, you'll get the ratio right, or you'll be like Tom Hanks and not have a good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for thanks for joining us. Thank you, Barry, for joining us and talking about sandwiches with Cecily and I. This is super fun.
Thank you.
I'll be looking. I can't wait to see. I'll be watching your sandwiches as they come up. I'll be looking for the hot sardine and yeah.
Me too.
My
We'll
pain
see.
is your gain. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. This was such a great hour. Dylan, Cecily, Barry, this was so much fun. Thanks for all your insight. I certainly want to try that fish that can get you high. That sounds pretty interesting. All right, folks, this is the book. It's an incredible book. You need to get it for the holidays. You need to get it now. Have it before Thanksgiving, have it when all your guests come. Again, if you're interested in corporate orders, large bulk orders, please give the store a call. We can facilitate that with discounts and shipping. And Cecily and Dylan will actually sign the book. So you will get signed books for all your staff or your clients or whoever you want to gift this to. All right, everyone, this has been a great hour. Please stay in touch with us. Thanks for spending your hour this evening with Book Passage and by Gastro Obscura. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.